Hi team, this is the Art of PLC, Shine On for Student Achievement. Basically, it's PLC 101. The purpose of this course is to, number one, refresh those of us that have been in this PLC process doing the work and picking out some very important information that you may be able to add to your PLC process, or something that you feel like you don't need to have in your PLC process at all. And it's also for our new coming teachers so that they know what to expect of the PLC process. So you're either going to relearn, unlearn, or rethink some of the thoughts of PLC. I'm your host for this evening, Kim Pierre, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to either myself, Nicole Gully, or Kelsey Grant. In this course, PLC 101, you'll be able to identify what a PLC is, explain why we participate, understand how to be an effective contributive PLC member, and understand the expectations of PLC at Patriot Elementary. Patriot is very strong with PLCs, and we're just going to share up our services and make sure that we know exactly what we expect our students to learn, how they're going to learn it, and how we are going to respond. Here's our agenda. We're going to go through all of these components. So by the time you're done, you will be able to participate and run a very effective PLC. So what is a PLC? This comes from DeFore's work, who also worked very closely with Rob Marzano when they were both alive, and they came up with this definition of what a PLC is. It's an ongoing process in which educators work collaboratively in recurring cycles of collective inquiry and action research to achieve better results for the students they serve. So we're working together as a team and coming up with best practices for our students. It's all about the students that are in your room. What works best for them? And working as a team to come up with strategies and ideas that may or may not work for you. But as a team, you will work together to decide that. Why do we have PLCs? In fact, PLCs is really the number one recommended professional development in the state of Florida. It's a learning community. It's teachers learning from teachers. And by working together and focusing on results and collaboration, we can grow professionally by learning from one another. PLCs are centered around 4 PLC questions. So each week when we meet and we're in the PLC, we're going to be all in different parts of the process, but it is a process. We might be working on what we want our students to know, question number 1, or question number 2, how do we know they've learned it? Or we might have taught and we want to know how we're going to respond. How will we respond when they don't learn, and how will we respond when they do know? So those are the questions that are a part of the PLC process. And each week we'll probably be at a different part of that process, just until we can ensure that all students have learned all of the information that we expect them to know. Question number 1 is, what is it that we want students to know? This is really guided by our benchmarks that we have. And usually for the PLC process, we start with our exemplar. We take the exemplar to figure out what kind of questions are our students going to ask. And then that way we can, when we move on to question number 2, how will we learn? We have that and we're using it. So in this phase, what do we want our students to learn? This is where we're going to work together to say, okay, this is how we're going to deliver this. How are you going to teach this? What do I start with? What's my hook going to be? What's my formative assessment going to be? How am I going to do an exit ticket? So this is generally what we're going to do as far as the actual teaching. And question 1 is where a lot of the learning comes from as teachers, where we can talk to each other about strategies and instructional practices that are high yield, that are the best for our students. Question 2, this one's kind of laid out for us already. We have fast data, we have iReady, we have exemplars, we have our student learning exit tickets. These things are working with your team to identify what we're going to use to make decisions about whether our students are learning or not, which is why we usually start with our exemplar, so that we know what our students are going to face, what they are going to be required to learn. And then we decide, like, maybe we all want our students to focus on one question and base our interventions off that, which leads us to question number 3. How will we respond when students don't learn? Well, after they've taken the exemplar, we look at our win time. How can we leverage our win time and our interventions? What can we do in our small group teacher-led center? What can we do in our small group independent center where students are working on their own? So this is a time for us to figure out how we can differentiate to meet the needs of all of our learners in our classroom. Question number 4. Well, how do we respond when those students who are proficient? Well, this is where we work with our win time, and we do some peer tutoring. And then we have iReady, we have Epic, we have videos and Safari Montage. Our Wonders and Envision series also has resources for us to use for enrichment and higher level thinking. This is the time to deepen the understanding of benchmarks and skills, not give them more. So it's time to go deep, not wide, with the benchmarks. What makes an effective PLC? We are organized, we're structured, we start on time, we're productive, we work together, we have a set of shared norms, and we're all working on answering the critical questions in order to reach our goals. This is what an effective PLC looks like. It's collaboration at its best. Each member of the PLC will have a role for responsibility and will be held accountable to that role because we are a team and we will work together. Because if one person's class is not doing well, then all of our classes are not doing well. And it's our job as a team to help bring everyone together and increase our scores for student achievement. When you come to PLC every week, make sure that you have all of the materials that you need. You're going to contribute to the setting the norms. That's going to be one of our very first PLCs. You're going to have an agreed upon agenda that you know you'll be talking about ahead of time. You'll be present and engaged. You'll contribute to the conversations, and you'll follow your roles and responsibilities. And make sure that whatever we discuss at PLC, that we're going to commit to actually doing that in our classroom so that we can really see if our interventions are working or if we need to make some more adjustments. PLC is based on some very basic understanding. One is that it's a focus on learning. We're working together to figure out what students have to learn by when. We already have pacing guides. We have things already paced out for the whole school year. Some of us are done for the whole school year. Some of us are done to the end of the quarter. Some of them are done up until Christmas break. But that's just a pace. We still need to figure out how we're going to systematically teach these strategies, how we're going to systematically teach this content to the students. What is the proper way to go about making sure that after we teach it, you don't go back and say, well, I taught it, they didn't learn it. Well, along the way, they lost something along the way. So during PLC, that's when we're going to look at our pacing guide and we're like, okay, this is coming up. What can we do? How are we going to make sure that these students learn these concepts and topics and make sure that they keep that knowledge fresh in their mind and they don't unlearn it the second that you move on to another topic? It's collaborative. We have all different people on all of our teams. We have our first year teachers. We have teachers that are veterans that have been doing this for 20, 30 plus years, and they have a lot of tools in their toolbox. But that doesn't mean that our first year teachers don't have anything that they can offer. So working together as a collaborative culture, we can work and make sure that everyone can be successful within the PLC process. Learning by doing. That means that we're going to sit there and we're going to talk about what strategies we're going to use. Then we're going to go back into our classroom and we're going to do those strategies. And then we're going to come back and revisit and talk about what worked and what didn't work. How come that worked for you? How come your class did much better? Did you do what we all did? Did you do something different? Having that conversation in a safe space makes sure that we can ensure that all students are working at a high level and are achieving their fullest potential. And again, it is a commitment to continuous improvement. We're going to work and we're going to readjust, work and readjust, and we're going to make sure that not that we're making decisions based on data and strategies, and not because we feel that they should know this. What data do we have to support that what we did worked? What data do we have to support that this might not have worked? So it's all data based, and it's nothing to do with an individual teacher or a teaching style or a personality. It's really not based on feelings. It's about evidence. What data do you have to prove that what you've put in place actually is successful? And of course, we're going to look at the results. We're going to look at the data. We're going to make changes based on the data. We definitely will create goals and make sure that they are aligned with the school and district goals. And so we have something that we're going to work towards. This is what we're working on, and this is how we're going to get there. Based on data, not on feelings. Everyone is working in the same direction on the same goal. Building a culture of collaboration. No one person has the knowledge, skills, or energy to fulfill all responsibilities simultaneously. There is no I in team. We are working together as a team for student achievement. It's not my kids, it's our kids. It's not your kids, it's our kids. And we're all going to work together to make sure that, because we can't meet everybody's needs, we're going to work together to make sure that we're using our strengths to best suit our students. So building a culture of collaboration is what's best for students and what's best for adults. We are the smartest people in the room. You're the smartest people in the room. You have all the answers. You know what your students need. So listening to one another and working together in order to make sure that our students are getting what they need.
Patriot Pals, please make sure you have your radios on at this time. Patriot Pals, please make sure you have your radios on. Thank you.
In building a culture of collaboration, we are working on a basis for how people think and how they act. The culture is shared beliefs. We have shared behaviors, shared norms, attitudes, and habits. The good, the bad, and the ugly. It's not an attack on an individual teacher on what they can and cannot do, but it's all of us working together. There is no I in a culture of collaboration. This also means that maybe you're doing something great and you want to share it with your team, and you should have people come look at what you're doing or work with a coach on something that you want to improve upon. Getting that individual attention so that we can do what's best for our students. It's not about what's best for the teacher, it's about what's best for the students. So, of course, we have standards or benchmarks, assessments, instructions, and response. This is all a part of that PLC process. I taught it, now what? Where did I start? How do I get there? You're looking through the lens of the PLC process of how to teach all of these things. It all works back to the 4 PLC questions. And within the instructional guides for each of our content areas, they have addressed all of these components. In stage 1, you're going to see, what do you want the students to know? You'll have benchmarks, you'll have will do's, can do's, will knows, that kind of information, all in stage 1. In stage 2, this is where we're talking about the assessments, the formatives, the summatives, the exemplars. All laid out for you. Stage 4 is the enrich. for the reteach. And this is where you get stuff that you can use to meet the needs of your students, whether that be enrichment or intervention. They've got question stems, they've got take 10 tasks. There's lots of support for you in order for you to meet the needs of your students. It's written in the stage 4 of the IG. So go forth, be the light. The passkey will be sent out to you. You will work together with your team to make sure that we understand the process and make sure that you know what kind of norms you want to have set for your team. And so that when we meet again, we'll be ready to go and rock and roll in PLCs. You guys are awesome. You're doing great work, and your student achievement shows it.